Vicky says, not to get off subject, but I just have to ask Sean if he owns a Shih Tzu. I wondered when I saw the pillow. Sorry, but as a Shih Tzu lover, I just had to ask. I love you and Miles' podcast, my new favorite. Thank you so much for the compliment on the podcast. We really appreciate you saying that. Yes, I do own a Shih Tzu. I'm glad you own one too. They're fantastic dogs. I recommend them to everyone who's interested in hearing nonstop barking and ear-splitting, ear-piercing barking noises in your house 24/7. If that sounds good to you, get a Shih Tzu.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. I'm Miles Reef. I'm here as always with my buddy Sean Cahill. This is the place where we tackle the stories that the TV networks won't touch. Guys, it's Monday. It's time to get into some comments. Before we do that, I just wanted to make a big announcement. We have hit a big milestone here on the channel, which is that we've got over 1 million views total. And we just want to let everybody know that. And, obviously we have a core audience here who has really helped us push to that level. So we wanted to thank everybody who's been watching and just, sort of reiterate that we are going to keep growing and keep putting the work in and keep the quality of what we're doing where it is. And if anything, increase the quality as we keep moving forward. And yeah, we're just really, really grateful. And obviously we couldn't be doing it without you guys. So thank you so much for pushing us towards that. Sean, is there anything else that we need to get into before we start reading some of these comments?
Yeah, there is one little thing. We've been talking about it recently, and we're going to talk about it more. And that is the fact that we have finally launched our long-awaited YouTube members only area. We're calling it the True Crime Unsolved Investigators Circle. So you can be a True Crime Unsolved investigator for $4.99 a month, which is cheaper than a Starbucks that I bought the other day. A large iced coffee is now going for $5.50 where I live. And the True Crime Unsolved membership lasts a lot longer than that, for only $4.99, right? It goes all month. So what you get there is a lot of different perks. We're going to be having members only live chats, members only shorts, members only polls for episodes where you can ask questions and you guys can weigh in there, as well as some exclusive interviews that we're going to put up there for the people who want a deeper dive. So if you're interested in that, you just click join right beneath this video, or you can find it on our homepage as well. Other than that, Miles, Austin Conu's case is going really well. There's been a lot of views on that case breakdown. I think it's now, as of today, our second highest viewed video after the Lacey Anderson case breakdown, which was our previous case. So things seem to be trending upward, which is awesome. It's awesome for us, but it's more importantly, it's awesome for the cases that we're covering and the families that are hoping to get that many eyeballs. So we wanted to say thank all of you who keep coming back week after week, following these stories with us. And of course, leaving the comments that we're about to get into. So I feel like that's a good segue, right?
Absolutely. And I do want to say, obviously, you guys know that we're sort of always doing these cases, at least with the blessing of the families involved, even if they don't want to do interviews. But obviously, with Austin's case, we do have interviews with the family, and Sean's been talking with Austin's mom quite a bit through this whole process, and I just wanted to let everybody know how grateful the family is for the response that Austin's case has been generating, how many people have been watching, how many people care, how many people have been commenting. I think that's really important. It's part of our mission. It's sort of our how we do things here. We always involve the family, and when they're happy and grateful for the reaction that our audience is having and the respectfulness in our community and all of that, I think it's really important just to remind you guys of that. So thank you, everybody that's been watching and commenting and caring about Austin and his family finding justice. So having said that, we do have a lot of comments about Austin's case. So I'm going to jump into it right here. So the first one is from the Idea Place. What's up, Idea Place? Haven't seen you in a bit. He was moving out of the neighborhood, so the convenience of living nearby and doing it by bicycle was leaving soon. That is such an interesting comment. That is making an assumption that the person who did this horrible deed knew that Austin was leaving soon. So, there's a couple of jumps there. But I do think that when you're looking at something, and as Sean and I have both said, we do think that this was probably targeted, that the person had some knowledge or at least, a reason, for targeting Austin. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Like
Yeah,
it
no,
was kind of a crime. Sorry, Sean, I was just going to say it was almost putting pressure, is what you're saying, Idea Place, that the fact that Austin was moving with his family and whatever the reason that they were able to do it and quickly and get away on a bike, sort of all tied in to the reason for it happening when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of detectives say different versions to me over the years of this phrase, like, we don't really believe in coincidences, right? I mean, they happen, but the more of them stack up, the more interesting things become. And I think the fact that Austin and Mary were leaving that house literally the next day, this was their last night in that house, and then that's when this happens. That could be chance, but it definitely feels like there might be a reason for that, right? Especially because the killer arrives and leaves on a bicycle, which indicates proximity, like you're saying, the idea plays. So, yeah, I don't think that can be overlooked. It does seem to somehow be connected. What are the odds that just on the final night in that house is when a stranger happens to come in and commit this heinous crime? I don't really see that being very likely. I think we all more or less agree this was probably targeted, and the question is just by whom and why that night and why on a bicycle, right? So those are the facts I would be looking at if I was in charge of this investigation, and I'm quite sure those are facts that the detective is looking at. All right.
The Chosen One. Welcome back to the Chosen One. It's great to see you. You know what's weird about the Austin case? The address where he was killed is 8623 Greenleaf Lake Drive. Elizabeth Barraza lived at 8623 Cedar Walk Drive. Both murderers were caught on film. Both murderers are getting away with murder. Both crimes happened in Texas. In both cases, there was a mirror 8623 address one street over from the address of the crime, which for all of our, regular viewers know that was something that the Chosen One presented as a theory about what may have happened to Liz, and that it was a case of mistaken identity, and it was actually something meant to happen in the mirror address that was on the the street right right parallel to where Liz lived. So yeah, I mean, these are really, really strange anomalies. I think that sometimes it's dangerous to get caught up in these kinds of facts because they lead people down sort of conspiratorial rabbit holes, and quite often life is filled with unlikely but very real coincidences, which we have no control over. And it's sometimes to try to make sense of that, we start, recognizing patterns and trying to sort of like, say, well, that means that this is connected to this, and that means that this is connected to this. And I think, I'm not trying to get too deep or political here, but I think people do that, in all kinds of ways. But it is very interesting. Neither of these murders have been solved. They are both in Texas. So it's an interesting thing to point out for sure. And I Chosen One. I do appreciate you always sort of finding these interesting anomalies that surround these cases.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of Chosen One? I don't know if you've ever heard this, but there's long been this sort of famous meme about all the similarities between the Kennedy assassination and the Lincoln assassination. Both of these guys were killed on November 22nd, both by people who like went by three names, and it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of strange coincidences, but they really are just coincidences because there's just no real. I mean, look, one guy was alive in the 1860s and one was in the 1960s. There was probably no connected plot between the two of them, but it is interesting. And so I think what's fascinating about human beings is our brains are pattern recognition machines. That is what our brains do best. We see patterns, we analyze things, and sometimes erroneous, not erroneous data, but it's like a signal and noise problem. There's so much noise. Sometimes we read the wrong signal in all of it. And I think this is fascinating, but I would be beyond shocked and I would come on the show and eat a boot if these actually connected because of the numbers on the streets. And the fact that both murders were caught on film. That being said, I'm not trying to like poo-poo this or anything. I think it's fascinating that you noticed this, and I always love your comments. I especially really enjoyed your Liz Barraza theory because you were the only one to come with that, and I actually think it was pretty fascinating and well thought out. So
Yeah.
please keep commenting. Um, Definitely, I love the way your mind works looking at this. It's almost like that movie, A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, where there's like
Uh-huh.
math and numbers, like, and he's like pulling things together. So
Love
yeah,
that.
yeah, I love that too.
Zach Butson 3401 says, agree with you guys, it could be a woman. The hips appear to be the biggest part of the body. Liz Barraza, much more likely to be a thrill kill. Garage sales are common on a Friday in the area, and killers stalking the area out looking for garage sale signs. No way that the thrill killer breaks into a family house out of the blue and stabs one person in a bed of two, especially a 30 some plus something man. In my opinion, thrill killers almost exclusively target obvious lone people at night, early morning, lovers' lanes, cabbies, lone people walking, jogging, etc. If it's an ultra rare breaking and entering thrill kill, it's got to be heavily staked out and be an elderly person or woman living alone. Yeah, I mean, these are really, really interesting points, Zach. You do see that a lot, in history. If you think about like Son of Sam and, guys who were just out there, like you said, just killing for the sake of killing, for wanting to see what that felt like. And that's a certain type of psychosis, right? It's often people who are parked, people who are jogging alone. You see that a lot where women are out, and they get attacked. And yes, breaking into someone's house randomly like that, and then leaving another victim, potential victim, alone in the same bed. It does seem very, very unlikely. Whereas the Liz thing, I think we've talked about that in the past, Sean, where the idea that like maybe it was a gang initiation thing, or just someone a little bit off their rocker who was looking for someone to hurt, and they had found the signs for the garage sale, and Liz was out there so early in the morning. She was off on her own. The car had left. Sergio had gone off to go to work. So all of that adds up to an easy target. And as we've said before, you know parking, leaving your car right there, jumping out, shooting someone, and then jumping back into the car and driving off is a lot different than riding your bike to a home, breaking into that home, finding your way to a bedroom, a particular bedroom, because we know that there was another individual, a child, asleep in another bedroom, going into that bedroom, going to the particular side of the bed, targeting the person who was asleep in that side of the bed, and then leaving. That's a pretty thought out course of action that I don't think equals a thrill kill. So yeah, and then as far as it could be a woman, I mean that's, yeah, we were talking about that earlier, right? It's the one thing that kind of stands out if you keep looking at that footage are the hips on that figure. But as Sean said, you keep watching this grainy footage over and over again, you start coming up with all kinds of stuff. I mean, going back to Liz again, we've had everybody say things like a Princess Leia costume to a Harry Potter robe, to a dress. I mean, people start projecting stuff onto it. Obviously, the Princess Leia thing makes sense because of the Star Wars group and, the involvement in that. So that's the first thing you think of. But then, it could be anything, right? So, yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, though. And I thank you, Zach, for pointing all of this out because it is a really good detailed breakdown of what the pathology of what a thrill kill usually looks like. And I think it's good to keep that in mind when we're looking at this case.
Yeah, and I think we can tie a couple things together that we've already talked about, which is kind of interesting. So, yeah, I mean, this commenter is already talking about how he or she, I guess it's a he because it's Zach, believes that it looks like a woman. Women are statistically so much less likely to be thrill killers, and when women do kill, it is much less likely to be up close, personal, and physically violent, especially against a male. I mean, like the statistics for these things just keep getting more and more astronomically rare the more we look at what happened here. The other thing is, and I'm going to really just generalize here because obviously this isn't true in every single situation, but generally speaking, thrill killers who do break and entry murders are targeting women when there's no male present in the house. Not always, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense if you're looking at it from their point of view because having a young, physically capable male to contend with is a more dangerous way to go about this thrill killing than going in when there's nobody there but a single person that you could probably overpower. So why Austin? It just seems like the thrill probably wasn't the point. And I hate jumping to conclusions because like maybe we will be surprised and find out that that's true, but nothing about this feels like thrill kill to me. I agree with you, Zach. I really do.
Do you want to take this next one, Sean?
Okay, let me make sure I get this right. It looks like Vicky K. Lop, 990. Hi, Vicky. Not to get
Might
off
be Vicky Klopp.
Vicky Klopp. Okay, yeah. Vicky, you're gonna have to comment again and let us know which way the wind blows on this. Are you Vicky Kalop or are you Vicky Klopp? Or is there a third option we're not considering? Miles and I are kind of famously bad at reading these names. We get a lot of them wrong. But why don't I just call you Vicky? So Vicky says, not to get off subject, but I just have to ask Sean if he owns a Shih Tzu. I wondered when I saw the pillow. Sorry, but as a Shih Tzu lover, I just had to ask. I love you and Miles's podcast, my new favorite. Thank you so much for the compliment on the podcast. We really appreciate you saying that. As far as the Shih Tzu goes, unfortunately, today I'm not in that office. I have two offices that I bounce between. This is the office with the horse picture, which, if you guys want to talk about that, leave me a comment. We can get into the horse. In the other one, there is a little pillow with a picture of a Shih Tzu, and it says Shih Tzu under it. And the answer is yes,
We
I do.
should put up a little picture of your Shih Tzu pillow with my
Yeah,
picture.
let's do it. Let's do it.
Show
And
everybody.
I do own a Shih Tzu. If you want to really split hairs, he is a half Shih Tzu, half Sheltie, which is like what a lot of people call a miniature collie. If you know what these look like, we can put up a picture of one now. I love what the show becomes on the Monday episodes. We're getting into like dog breeds and which, a little levity doesn't hurt. Considering what we usually talk about. So yes, I do own a Shih Tzu. I'm glad you own one too. They're fantastic dogs. I recommend them to everyone who's interested in hearing nonstop barking and ear piercing barking noises in your house 24/7. If that sounds good to you, get a Shih Tzu. I love mine.
As a man who lives with a Chihuahua, it can't be any worse. That's all I have to say. But hey, Vicky, thank you. Thank you for the support. And hey, we love being your new favorite podcast. So
Absolutely.
please stick around. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. Um, MNASDFG. I am not going to try to
That's not
pronounce
even
that.
pronounceable. Yeah, come on.
I just found your channel. You are a great team. You complement each other so well.
That's sweet.
Thank you. That's very, very nice. I think Sean and I do work really hard to sort of like listen to each other and not speak over each other. And, it's funny because this is probably something more suited to our member area, but I'll take you guys a little bit behind the curtain. When we first were coming up with this concept and we wanted to launch a YouTube channel and start making our own independent content outside of our sort of day job careers as true crime television producers, we really thought that because Sean and I have a lot in common and see eye to eye on a whole lot of stuff in life, we also sort of approach those realities in different ways, if that makes sense. Where, I'm a bit of the Mulder and Sean's a little bit more of the Scully, oftentimes, where, I want to believe. And I thought we were going to argue a lot more when we were going to do this, right?
I did
Like our
too.
original, that's what we kind of figured was like, well, I'll always go for the craziest possible angle. And it really hasn't turned out that way. It surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, we should have been more realistic about it. I think because we've produced so many shows together, and we've studied these things, and we've both been on the road together interviewing policemen and detectives and families. I think we both have a really really clear perspective on how a lot of this stuff works, and I think because of that, yes, we might be coming at it from slightly different perspectives, but we sort of end up in the same place. And I think what's really important is that we both really believe in the mission. So thank you for seeing that, and we appreciate it. And we will try to keep getting along and not just screaming at each other and drinking wine and whatever it is that people expect to see when they go on up. Because a lot of true crime podcasts is one person talking to a camera, right? And
Yeah.
when you do have two, sometimes the idea behind that is that there's like grist in the mill, right? And there's, they're arguing or, they're gossiping. And I don't think we kind of do that. But we're glad it's working. We're
Well,
glad
you
it's
know
working.
why? I think that there could have been a version of this show that we could have done. We never really discussed doing it, but it could have turned out where we didn't actually involve the real people, right? And it wasn't an interview show. And if it was just Miles and I reading about cases and never having anything to do with the people involved, then sure, we could speculate and get crazy and argue all day about what we think happened. But because we're bringing in the human element of the real people, and the show isn't about speculation, it's about promoting the mission of like, platforming the real story from the real people for real world help. Like, there's no room for us to be Mulder and Scully. As fun as that idea sounds, it's not about us and our opinions. And I think that That has made it really cool. And I think that's actually one of like the secret sauces of what's working here and why we continue to see our numbers increasing and people connecting with what we're doing. And also families like leaving this experience happy with us and new families coming in because we're not, you know, going like one of us thinks a UFO took your child and the other one thinks that there's a scientific reason behind it. And that would
Right.
be a fun show, but I just don't think in the real world we can do the mission we're trying to do and also do that. So yeah,
Well, it's a fun show, but nobody's going to be lining up to talk to us. I mean, you guys have to understand that's how we get a lot of our stuff these days. Like it started out with Sean and I just, grinding and making phone calls and researching cases that we thought were interesting. And we still do that, but a lot of stuff is coming to us now. And the hope is as we continue to grow that that's gonna be the primary way that we find content, that we find stories that we want to talk about, is that people are either suggesting it. A lot of you guys make suggestions like, hey, have you looked into this case? Sean, I'll, either we've heard of it or we look it up and we're like, hey, that is a really interesting case, we should look into that. For
yeah,
instance, Austin's case came to us through the Nellies, so that was a relationship we built with Bob and Rosemary, and they had been working with Crime Stoppers, and Austin's family was involved with them too, obviously, and so that's how it came to us. So that's sort of how it's working. So anyway, yeah, thanks MNASTFG for noticing that, and we will try to continue to not think about it too much, but to keep complimenting each other. Do you want to take this last comment?
yeah, this looks like it's about Chance Englebert. So we're going back to the Chance story, which is another, another one that we've talked about a lot. So let's see. At I am Glow 7 says it was the 4th of July weekend. There was a rodeo in Torrington. Chance competed there numerous times. Maybe that's how the truck guy knows him. Okay, Chance was looking for a ride at one point. Maybe the truck guy and the two girls came over from Torrington, possibly to pick up Chance, and something happened. Now that's a fresh theory. Man, in all the Chance discussions and comments we've had, we've never heard this one before. And it would, what leaps out to me now is the fact that Chance was found, his remains were found, but missing his rodeo belt buckle, right? His like prized possession, which was a belt buckle celebrating a rodeo win, if I'm recalling that correctly. So maybe the person that did find Chance did recognize him from that world, and maybe if foul play is indeed what happened there, maybe that's why that belt buckle is gone, because if a rodeo person was the person behind this, they would know what that was and they would know it was important chance and it was valuable. Um, Now, as far as the truck, I think that this commenter is referencing the truck that Ryan Couch talked about, right, with the two girls in the rain. If you guys aren't familiar with the Chance story, I'm sorry, I'm skipping the details. Go check it out on our channel. It's a really, really fascinating case. But I'm
We
not
can
gonna.
we can drop it in the description on this video
Yeah,
too. Like
well, we
we
don't
have a
have the
whole playlist on that. Yeah.
we don't have
We
the
don't
time
have
to
the
go through
time right
all
now,
of
so
this,
yeah.
all of this right now. So I'm gonna kind of assume you guys know what this is. Um, yeah, that's an interesting theory. I mean, it makes as much sense as anything else at this point. The way that I feel in my head when I think about Chance's case is it's just such a frustrating dead end right now because it feels like the people who are responsible for investigating it have said case closed just because the remains are found. But there is just so many questions that I have, and I know everyone else has, about why was Chance found where he was found? Did he really go there on his own? Did somebody put him there? Why were some of his belongings missing? If this was just an accident, they should be there somewhere. So I'm going to entertain this kind of theory as long as it continues to come in, Miles, because I don't think we have the answers that we're all looking for to say case closed.
Yeah, look, if we're gonna talk about it, because I mean we are about trying to find the truth here. Um, so I'm just rereading I am Glow's comment real quick. So there's some details with the truck, right? If it, and again, you're saying the truck guy and the two girls. So we I think it's safe for us to assume that you're talking about the truck that was witnessed by the girl who came forward much later after she came back to town and seen the billboard, said she was coming home from a quinceanera. She was in the back of the truck and she witnessed this weird event happening on the side of the road. So from the account that we've heard, the truck was hauling what looked like a boat. So I don't know if a guy's going to a rodeo hauling a boat, but maybe it was mistaken and maybe it was actually hauling a horse trailer. And, in the pouring rain and the storm that we all know was going on that night,
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's it. That's interesting. Also the two girls, obviously, according to the eyewitness account, they actually came down the hill and jumped into the truck. So they were outside. So it's not like they were like with this guy necessarily. Maybe I don't know. We don't know what happened. We've always said it was a very strange set of circumstances in a small place with Chance disappearing that same night. And, timing wise, his phone going offline, it kind of all created a very, very strange set of circumstances. But listen, I am Glow. This is an interesting observation. And like I said, maybe the eyewitness got it wrong. Maybe it wasn't a boat. Maybe it was a horse trailer. It's not something we've ever talked about before. It's not something I've ever heard before, but it's very interesting and quite possible.
I just love that people are continuing to talk about chance and that we haven't accepted that it's over and done with now. I love that. And I really appreciate you commenting that because I know the last thing his family wants is for people to just forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's all the comments for this week, guys. Again, always great insights, great conversations. We really, really appreciate it. Again, we appreciate all of our initial members of our True Crime Unsolved investigator team that we're building here. As Sean said, right now it's just kind of like, we're going to put up a couple of special videos and we have some badges and we're going to start putting people's names up for thank yous. But as we keep moving forward, we're going to add more and more stuff to that. So keep an eye out. If you like what we're doing and you feel like just supporting us, please, please, please feel free to join. It definitely helps us. We put a lot of work into this, and every little bit helps. And if you don't have the money, which I totally understand, and you can't afford the 4.99,
Yep.
um, subscribe to the channel, please. Hit the notifications bell. It helps us so much in the YouTube algorithm. I get it. You don't always want like tons of stuff always popping up in your feed, but it really does help us. And if you do believe in the mission and you want to see these families help, it really helps elevate this. And basically, every time someone subscribes, it bumps us up a little bit more, and YouTube recommends us more because it sees that what we're doing is appreciated. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you guys, and yeah, if you have the inkling, please subscribe and hit that notifications bell.
Absolutely. The biggest and best thing you guys can do is what you're already doing, which is just watching, because that helps this channel get its message and its cases out to more people. So that's the biggest thing. The membership is a perk for people who wanted to do a little bit more. Like Miles and I do put a lot of work into this and we believe in it. And, this is something that allows you to just give us that extra level of support, and we're going to give you stuff in return for it. Other than that, you just being here at all is awesome. And we thank every single one of you, members and non-members alike. So that being said, we will see you this Friday for Austin Conu's brother-in-law, Richard Johnson's interview, which was fantastic. I'm excited for you guys to see it. And then we'll see you again the following Monday in the comments.
Yeah, and listen, if you guys are following Austin's case, which apparently a lot of you are because it's almost at 100,000 views now in less than a week, you do not want to miss this interview with Richard. I think the stuff that he gave us insight into, he's just a very thoughtful guy, and he's been very involved in things. He was at the scene of the crime right after it happened because he went back there with Mary to help her out. And he runs the Facebook page, so he's just been extremely involved in the case. So if you're following it and you want to know more, I would say please hit the notification and watch Richard when he comes online.
Right on. All right. Thank you guys as usual, and we'll see you in a couple days.
Thanks everybody.